Hello, and welcome back to Your Golden Path. This is episode 3, and I want to talk about the way astrology can help you recall your divine contract. What is a real key to understanding that golden path is to look at your natal horoscope, your birth chart. If you can get the time that you were born, then you've got a real advantage. We use the time, the place, the date of your birth to set up a chart that represents the heavens as they were looking when you were born. What we're saying in astrology is that by taking that snapshot of time at the moment of your arrival, we can see in it, using the ancient techniques been handed down to us from the time of the Greek philosophers and even earlier probably, we can look at that map, regard it as a kind of mandala, a symbolic work of art almost, and investigate what is that image telling us about who we are. Is some kind of mirror that we can look into. So clearly, I don't know how much you know about astrology, and it might be that you know quite a lot if you're coming to my YouTube channel. But it's crucial to understand, however much you know about the techniques, it's crucial to understand how this process of checking out your timing can help you understand what was going on when you decided to incarnate. So looking at the natal chart tells us a great deal about the potential and the possibilities, and even maps out the timetable for certain events to occur in your life. And some of those events seem to be predetermined, as people would say. But we also know, and we feel it, that we have some free will, some agency. We certainly don't like the idea that everything is mapped out and it's going to be like this happens when you're 5, this happens when you're 14, this happens when you have your Saturn return, certainly as Westerners, we like to think that we do have some choice in these matters. So what choices do we have? If we go back to the philosophy that we talked about with Plato, there's this concept that we made some choices even before we arrived, before we were born. And in that respect, it's quite useful to look at charts for what was happening before you were born. We don't have the possibility of identifying the moment of conception, but while you're in the womb, we can identify, for example, when there was a solar eclipse, or a lunar eclipse, or a full moon. And we can look at some of those charts as well as your birth chart. And that can be quite helpful in identifying what's the story that's coming through, and that will eventually emerge as you are born, depending on the circumstances. We may also identify, did something happen when you were born, at the process of being born, like an event, an unusual event, perhaps like the need for a cesarean or something. If something like that happens when you're born, then some of the story that was already in place may have been disrupted in some way. There may be some sense of not quite having the continuity that the soul was expecting. And that's why what we call prenatal charts can be quite helpful. But the idea of looking at these charts is in order to assist us in recalling what was that divine contract that we forgot about when we went through the river Lethe. And once we can start unpicking some of the basic fundamental gems in that contract, they don't have to be precisely, it's got to be like this, I've got to be this talented musician who gets terribly famous and rich, or I'm going to live in the mountains forever and meditate with the Tibetan Buddhist monks. It doesn't have to be that precise, but what it will give us is what we call an archetypal pattern. And then you can look at it and say, my soul wants to express something like this. What are my options? That's where your free will comes into play. You can understand what I call the divine paint box for your artistic endeavour. You've been given this magic painting box, and it has certain colours in it that are special to you. And you can choose from that how to make use of them in order to make your life successful, so that you feel as though you're fulfilling something that's inherently yours, uniquely to do with you and nobody else. So it doesn't matter what the social world tells you. You ought to be like this, or by the time you're that age, you should have done this, that, or the other, gone to university, or collected these skills. You certainly may wish to learn some skills that will keep you in bread and butter, and that's a very practical thing to do. But once you're aware of what the soul needs, you can make those choices. Okay, my soul needs to express itself through music. Music may not be the best money earner, it can be, but like various poets and philosophers of the past, you might have to do another job for the making sure that the rent comes in. But it's knowing what the golden path is, underpinning those practical issues, that allows you to create strategies. And astrological charts are ideal when you're mapping out some concepts for your future well-being, because they give you timetables. They tell you what the planets are up to next year or the year after. And you can look at those future charts and say, yes, that would suit me to do something like that just then. So this is the great value of working with astrology. We could actually say there are two great values. Number one is identifying the potential for this soul, the colours in the paint box. The second great value is knowing the tides of time, so that you can identify when it would be best to publish your new book, or set up a stage performance for your first concert, or whatever it is in your life, buy a new house, have a baby, whatever. Astrology gives you that timetable, and it can be really precise and very, very helpful. So, if you want to understand the golden path that's supporting what you could do in life, then your natal charts and your prenatal charts can be the keys to that understanding. And if you want to look ahead, where is this golden path meandering? Doesn't necessarily go in a straight line, I can tell you. But where is it desiring to move to? Then you can look at the timetables. And that gives you a sense of confidence and a sense of courage and a certainty. And you can make the commitment. They all begin with C, those words. Confidence, courage, certainty, commitment. It's as easy as A, B, C, 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 C. And the A is for attitude and the B is for belief. So I'll be back with episode 4, which will be about the tree of life in Jewish mysticism, what is usually called Kabbalah, and how that can give us some mystical maps for our travels into the different travels. Well, the travels inward and the travels outward as well. Many blessings. See you again soon.